I never plan those intros, I just see what happens. It's always really good fun. Welcome to this video today, YouTubers. I'm going to be walking you through the 5 essential areas of study for rockabilly players. If someone came to me and they said, Adrian, I want you to teach me how to play rockabilly, these are the starting points. Of course, we can expand beyond all of these and incorporate a whole bunch of things. But these are the 5 areas of study I would recommend straight off the bat getting into. I'll also point you in the direction of some of my tutorials that will help. And later in the video, I want to mention some of the other teachers that are around, because I'm certainly not against you learning from other people. I want you to learn from everywhere and anywhere. That's how you really get good at all this stuff. You don't want to have a closed mind. Everyone's got something of value to offer, so I'll talk about the other teachers later in the video. Now, if you don't like rockabilly guitar, if you don't like my playing, you don't like my lessons, then don't subscribe, don't comment, don't hit like, and obviously if you do all those things. I'm just trying to find an interesting way to ask you to do those things. 300 or 400 videos later, you sort of want to, be a bit creative. Okay, so study area 1, scales. I know a lot of you aren't the biggest fan of doing scales, but if you hear out this whole video, you're going to hear, especially in study area 1, the result and one of the reasons it's really useful. I highly recommend going through a whole bunch of scales, but at the very minimum, learning your minor pentatonic and your major pentatonic scales, along with some major and minor arpeggios, will at least give you a fundamental starting point to work ideas off. If I played this lick, if I turn my guitar up, it will help. I can see it's very close to a minor pentatonic. I've just made an alteration, for example. So it's really great just to have some structure, okay? A couple of basic things. They give you a bit of a framework to work from. So I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. I do have a video out there with 12 rockabilly scales. It's a bit of a disaster, that video, because it's just the raw file that got uploaded. But people seem to really like it, and it's going really quite well in terms of views. So I'll put that in the link below. Check it out. It will definitely get you started, and you can pick and choose what you want from it. Area 4. Chords and chord inversions. We obviously are going to learn some basic chords when we learn rockabilly. A G chord, for example, a C chord, and a D chord would be the 3 chords that would make a lot of rockabilly songs, or at least the structure. So we might do that in A, where we do an A chord, a D chord, and an E chord, and we'll obviously use those as a 1 chord, 4 chord, and a 5 chord. If you don't understand that, that's okay. Just hear me out. So once you do get the basic concepts of some of those fundamental chords, you want to learn them in different places, and we call those inversions. We often call them triads. It really depends on what type of chords that we're using. I won't get too detailed, but for example, here's a G. Here's another way we can play the G. Basically the same thing anyway, but we can move it up here, and we could move it up here. So these are really important concepts to learn. Learn triads, learn inversions, particularly up on the first 3 strings. I have a video for that. I'll also put that in the link. But let me give you an example. It's a little bit like That's Alright Mama. Okay, that's one example. Luther Perkins in... So you can see there was an inversion of a B flat. They're really simple things, but they're a great thing, and you hear it a lot in rockabilly, so I highly recommend that. Area 3, flat picking. Flat picking is just another way of saying you're really just kind of using a pick, okay? Getting carried away there. So that's flat picking, guys, using a pick. So I highly recommend, if you do decide to practice some scales, work on your alternate picking, where we pick down, up, and you're kind of knocking over 2 birds in 1 stone. Use a metronome to build up your speed, pick a scale that maybe you do like, and set your metronome at an easy speed and push that speed up as you get comfortable. It'll prepare you better for things that you come up against. So consider anything to do with practicing flat picking or just using a regular pick and not your fingers something well worth practicing for rockabilly playing, obviously. And of course, there's some great songs like anything Luther Perkins. I mean, I know I bounce a lot off Luther Perkins and Scotty Moore in this particular video, but I feel like they're just such great purveyors of these, fundamental areas. So, for example, if you looked at anything to do with Luther Perkins, it's great flat picking work. You might even look at something like Hound Dog, something along those kind of lines. You're going to be using a bit of flat picking. It's obviously essential. There's just a couple of simple examples that you might want to work on a little bit. And of course, even Luther Perkins' picking style, with a pick. There might have been some other little things going on, but if you wanted to just practice that would be flat picking as well. Number 2, this one definitely gets a bit more complicated, but is really worth your time. Travis picking. Now, a little history on Travis picking. Merle Travis is the guy who made that style of playing a thing, or it was certainly named after him. But I do want to say there are a lot of great African-American players even prior to Merle Travis. Now, I'm not 100% on the time frames, but what I can tell you is guys like Big Bill Brunsey, Mississippi John Hurt, I shouldn't say guys, there's a lady, Elizabeth Cotton, and probably many others, who were fantastic finger pickers, and it would often get called something along the lines of pattern picking. I think there's piedmont picking, and it's all very similar. So it would be a little bit unfair not to acknowledge that. I'm not being political, just factual here. So keep that in mind, but definitely check out anything to do with Merle Travis and pattern picking, Travis picking, and the Chet Atkins stuff. Now, the Chet Atkins stuff is kind of the highest evolution of the Travis picking style. Merle Travis kind of just used his thumb and one finger. Whereas Chet would was a little bit more complicated and used all his fingers, and there were some little things that went on in between that were really quite sweet with Chet's playing. So I'm a big Chet fan. I've got a few tutorials on his stuff. So check out my Chet and Travis playlist. I teach some basic versions of Chet Atkins stuff that I think would be a great starting point. But of course, there are heaps of great videos out there. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, I will mention some other teachers very shortly. But before I get to number 1, it's also worth just quickly mentioning, in the rockabilly context, when we look at someone like Scotty Moore, he was actually trying to do the Chet Atkins thing. Why do I keep doing that? He actually was a player that wanted to play like Chet Atkins, but getting thrust into the world of rock and roll was using those techniques, and that's where you get, again, something like That's Alright Mama. I keep sort of wanting to keep the thumb going, but he doesn't really. So you can see there, that little overslide. So you can see there, it's such an important part of rockabilly playing, and obviously guys like Brian Setzer use it extensively, the Reverend Horton Heat, a really nice blend of stuff. Check out the tutorial on Where in the Hell Did You Go With My Toothbrush. That's a good one too. And Psychobilly Freakout, he's doing all this. I can't remember how to play it. So yeah, enough said about Travis picking. Let's get to number 1. The number 1 fundamental area of study for rockabilly players is songs. Okay? Now, everything that I've mentioned leading up, you'll notice that I referred in most part to songs because it's all in songs. But here's the thing. If you do the work on those other things in a fundamental way, it just gives you, A, more to practice, and B, it helps prepare you for when you start playing songs, okay, you'll have things to connect. If you're learning... That was just my butchered version of a little bit of Lonesome Train. I have a full transcription of that, but I did that like 2 years ago. So I don't remember it exactly, but you can see I'm using pentatonics, and I remember transcribing that. There's a lot of pentatonics, there's a lot of minor blues. I can always refer to a scale. It helps me transcribe, it helps me learn the songs, because I have a really good fundamental knowledge of the guitar, because I spent probably 1,000 hours practicing scales from the age of 7 till, even these days I still practice scales. So it really helps, all those fundamentals, chords and chord inversions. When I'm hearing things, I know all those passages, and you can guarantee that a lot of these things you're hearing will be something like that, or a variation of. So having those fundamentals just gives you things to work off. Now, if you just learn songs, it's very intimidating. It's much harder to do it in a progressive nature. So having these fundamental things to work on, it gives you almost like I don't want to say safe space, but like a comfortable area to practice in, where you're not under the pressure of time. You've just got things to learn that you can feel good about progressing with. So keep that in mind. I would be going out of my way to find something fundamental from all of the things that I mentioned just to work on. But remember, all playing, all practicing, all feeds into itself. So the more variation of ideas you've got to practice, the better all round it's going to be for your playing. Now, finally, to end the video, I just quickly want to discuss with you that there are great resources on YouTube. A lot of it's free. A lot of these guys you can actually help out by buying, purchasing lessons from, or supporting via Patreon, etc. But I want you to check out Randy Richter, Damien Bacci, Deathray Cat. Check out Rockabilly Revolution, Six String Twangin', that's Jeff. There are so many great guys putting out this stuff, and there's probably a lot more. I'm really sorry that I haven't made an extensive list of all of them, but I highly recommend just seeing what's out there. Everybody will have something interesting to contribute to your learning if you are, open to listening to it. So throw yourself out there, go listen to heaps of stuff, and don't deny yourself learning from anybody, okay? It's going to make a big difference if you have an open mind and work hard, learn songs, listen to these people who are, experienced, and they've put a lot of their lives into the instrument, so they're going to have things to impart. So keep that in mind. And of course, you can delve a little deeper with my lessons. There's a few hundred on YouTube now. I have transcriptions that go for nearly all of those on Adrian Whyte Online or via the Patreon. The Adrian Whyte Online space has courses. I've got workshops coming there, and it's all organized in a library. So it's a really great resource. Go check that out at the very least. I won't bore you anymore with any imagery about it. You can just click the link below and have a think about it. Or you can support the channel on Patreon. Or go check out one of the other guys. They've got great stuff to offer as well. The main thing is that you're doing your part and at least clicking like, commenting on this video, and subscribing to my channel. Thanks for watching. I will see you all in the next video. I'm going to play you out. I really should plan these things.